Welcome and good afternoon. This is Brian Tate with the Innovative Payments Association. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We have a wonderful presenter here today for our fall semester learning series. Today, we are privileged to have Art Recesso. He is the Vice Chancellor for Academic Innovation at the University System of Georgia. Art's job, or put it this way, Art has many jobs, but one of the things that we're going to talk about today that he works on is workforce development, and it is Art's responsibility to recruit and maintain, educate, and then hopefully graduate students in the University of Georgia system and get them ready to work in the larger banking space, but specifically fintech. And so we're very excited to have Art here today. This is an opportunity for everyone listening to learn more about what Art is doing, but more importantly, if they have the opportunity to get involved in some way, shape, or how, either supporting the University of Georgia system by offering sponsorships or knowledge and background, any intellectual capital you have will also be extremely valuable. So with that, I will step back and get out of the way and turn it over to Art. Art, welcome.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's a great opportunity to be here with you again. I've enjoyed our conversations over the years as we worked on the FinTech Academy and other initiatives in Georgia. This is a great opportunity to be here with your whole organization, and that is exactly my goal today, is to share with you all what the University System of Georgia is doing differently to develop talent and get you the workforce that you need and that is in high demand, but also to make an ask of you to engage with us. The more you engage with us, the more we learn, the better we align the programs to your demand, the better prepared our students are. And as Brian and I were talking before we got started, I mean, my dream is that you are so connected with these institutions and these students that you're picking them off before they graduate and are happy with the people that you get. So thank you for this opportunity. As Brian said, I'm with the University System of Georgia. We are 26 public four-year institutions, 340,000 students, 45,000 faculty. We're one of the largest systems in the country. I think we're top 5 or 6. So serving a lot of students through colleges like the one I'm at today. I happen to be visiting Dalton State College in North Georgia. We have multiple state colleges, about 10 state colleges, state universities, Research 2 and Research 1, University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, Georgia State, and Augusta being some that you may know. But we also have 3 public HBCUs and 7 minority serving institutions. So when it comes to deep reach and a massive number of people, we already have that in place. This particular unit, it's kind of an odd name, this academic innovation, but it was set up for the purpose to work on workforce development and talent needs. You'll see that I'm going to speak to that in terms of knowledge, because it does seem that the fintech companies and many of the other employers that we've worked with over the last several years have made it clear that there is a knowledge demand, people that need to be able to solve problems, communicate, develop new products, develop intellectual property, and provide that competitive advantage for your companies. That is very much what we're focused on, and I'm hoping to find more ways to engage with you today. So what I'm going to start with is a little bit of a conceptual how we're rethinking how we approach talent development and workforce development. It has traditionally been reliant on Bureau of Labor Statistics, looking at the labor data and saying, okay, well, it looks like we need a lot of people in supply chain. It looks like we need a lot of people in healthcare. Let's build more programs for that. Well, that hasn't been as effective as working very closely with the employers to extract that information. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is a great demand signal. However, and fintech is a great example of this, it does not always reflect what's going on in the employment sector. It's very difficult to find fintech data in the labor statistics. It's hidden in other sectors. So what we did is we went and actually worked very closely with, at the time, it was about 60 of the fintech employers out of the 125 that were in the Georgia region at the time, and extracted out what this knowledge demand was. And what we discovered through this process is that it is very much a two-sided knowledge demand. On the left, the employment sectors. In the state of Georgia, this is 22,000 cybersecurity analysts in demand. It is 70,000 data scientists. It's 5,000 fintech-ready professionals annually. And then that's on top of healthcare, education, supply chain, other areas that are just growing like crazy. And for the longest time, this employment sector in terms of knowledge demand has been addressed by 2-year and 4-year degrees. Even that is changing as people look for professional certificates, or just they need a new knowledge set. You need to learn blockchain, now, because you're thinking about entering into that sector. So there's this whole massive employment sector side, literally thousands and thousands of people. And on the right side is the learner demand. 39 million people in the United States have some college and no degree. 1.5 million people in the state of Georgia have some college and no degree. And we can see the vast number of people that are pursuing the free certificates, the code academies, even learning through YouTube and Skillshare and other resources like that, going to Udacity, the MOOCs. The demand is clearly there, and it is massive. The problem has been the compelling value. How does higher education see itself as delivering compelling value to each of these sectors? So for the learner, that value proposition is their interest, their aspirations. They're working 3 jobs now, they would like to work 1. They want to provide for their family, they want a better salary, they want access to these high demand career areas. That is the pains that they're trying to resolve, and the gains that they're trying to realize are clear. For the employer, it's also clear. It's that intellectual property, it's the solving the problems, it's growing a sector, increasing revenue, competitive advantage. What hasn't been paid as much attention to is the value proposition of the institution of higher education, the 4-year universities that we have. And their value proposition is very much tied to that knowledge development, which what we have found in our new processes is that when we converge these 3, when we know the employer demand, when we know the learner demand, and we validated the institutional value proposition, it becomes crystal clear what to build. And I'll walk through what some of the results of that are. So this is just a very quick way to show that the university system of Georgia is taking a very different approach to this workforce development and this knowledge demand that the employers are telling us about, and making sure that that demand is in clear alignment with the development by delivering compelling value and making sure that we have action strategies to deliver on that value. How we're doing that is through a new kind of process. And this is where we have engaged the employers directly in a very different way. So we look at that labor statistics, we look at the analyses that are coming out of the consultancies telling us fintech is huge, massive area. Okay, know it, and we know the growth is happening. But what does that mean? What do these people do? What do they need to know and be able to do? We have to go beyond the advisory councils and the statistics and the reports is all very coarse information. If you want to generate the talent you need to solve the problems and get to your competitive advantage, the institutions need to know what the people need to know and be able to do. And that's why we designed this process. It's at first a discovery to go out and work with the employers, interview the people who are actually doing the work. It's wonderful to work with the C-level folks in HR and the leadership, but it's the people who possess the knowledge, the people who are enacting, people that are solving your problems day to day, possess the information that is most valuable to these institutions. And we created a process to go get that.
Art, if I may, when you hear from companies in Georgia, and we know that there is all roads and payments cross through Georgia at some point. Do they literally come to you and say, we just don't have enough employees, or they don't have the right skills, or we're losing out to Silicon Valley, or is it all of the above?
All the above. And what are we going to do about it? Solve that problem for me now. And so that's where the conversation often starts, is someone is saying, look, in Georgia specifically, it was an issue of what they called trading jerseys. So Incom would hire them, put them through their apprenticeship program, get these folks trained, get them knowledgeable, and then FIS and Fiserv would steal them away. And that was significantly increasing the salaries. So it does start there, and it starts very general. And what I'm advocating is that's an okay place to start. That's a demand signal. You need more people. You need them solving problems. And then the most powerful thing you can do is give access to the employees, not to get into anything proprietary or things you need to keep secret. We never did that. We found through this process, we could stay at a level of what problems are you working on? What are you solving? What do you need to know and be able to do? What's your skill set? What are your competencies and capabilities? And being able to capture that through a process and then convert it into curriculum. That's essentially what this was about. And we quickly went from, I need a lot of people that show up, and I got to stop losing them to California, to this is what they need to know and be able to do. Show me a program that does that. And that's what we were able to do through this process. Through that interaction with those employees, we capture the trends, the forces driving the demand in a knowledge demand playbook. This begins to fully delineate, what's going on in the sector, what's driving the demand, what kind of competitive advantages it would provide to the sector. We capture that information and share it with the institutions so they understand the sector itself. We still have work to do in this space, because people are like, what is fintech? Well, I know I have a credit card and a debit card, and I see this blockchain stuff on the news, but what does it mean? And what is a career in fintech, and how do I get there? That's what we captured in the playbook and distributed that only to our institutions. The knowledge development framework was the information that we extracted from the employees that says, this is what people need to know and be able to do, and these are the priority sectors. When we got done with our analysis of fintech, the highest demand domain area within fintech was data science, which was fascinating. I would have expected finance or other things, but it was actually data science and cybersecurity. And what is a transaction, the anatomy of a transaction. We were able to capture that in a spreadsheet, give that to faculty. They can then convert that into new curriculum. That wasn't available anywhere until we had done that work with your employees. The third part is the strategic action plan, which is developing solutions that meet the demand. Building a program at each institution for 20 people was not going to get us there. We literally needed 5,000 fintech people. We now need 70,000 data science people. We need 22,000 cybersecurity analysts. We are never going to put a dent in that designing programs for 20 or 30 people. So that becomes part of the action plan, and the collaboration with the employers to do that gets there too.
Art, in terms of the number of institutions that you have to oversee, and you're talking about implementing programs with I would assume the University of Georgia is the flagship institution there, but obviously you have other institutions. Would the same program be applicable at the University of Georgia as it would be in a smaller institution in your state?
We did it that way. That's a good example where the University of Georgia had some assets in place where it built its own program, but our approach to scale and meet this at a high quality was to build 5 courses at Georgia State University, also a research one in Atlanta, right there in Transaction Alley. And they had the faculty on hand who had worked in fintech, not just finance or other areas, but had actually worked in fintech. They built 5 courses And then instead of 26 institutions building 26 curricula with 26 different faculty with 20 or 30 students in each program, we took those 5 courses, made them available through our eCampus asset, and 23 out of the 26 institutions adopted those courses, and therefore were available at a state colleges, a state university, and an R1, including our 3 HBCUs and our 7 minority serving institutions. And here's the thing on top of that. The employers asked for this all along, was not just business degrees, but also cyber degree, computer science degree, liberal arts degrees, sales degrees, could take these 5 courses and stack them on so folks would come out with an understanding of the fintech ecosystem for their particular career area. Really important, especially for computer science majors, building the transaction platforms. That process leads to a depth of engagement. The employers have been incredible partners on this. I'm not sure who all's on the call, but it may be some of you all here who were great partners with this in providing projects for the students to work on, resources for them to learn about fintech, but then also the experiential learning, the internships and apprenticeships, which is just huge. So I was going to dive into this example where we run this process and where we've had results. So the fintech approach was an entire employment sector. In Georgia, this is now over 200 companies, 50,000 employees, with an entire university system as a collaborator, not having to go to each individual institution to try and get a curriculum, to set up an internship, to do career placement. Instead, we stood up the Georgia FinTech Academy, a public-private partnership, publicly funded, privately funded, was at the University System of Georgia, and we recently, it's gone through its startup phase, and so we moved it over to Georgia State University, Robinson College of Business, wonderful partners. Rich Phillips, the dean there. Rich Phillips and Jim Sen at Georgia State were the early architects of all of this. And we stood up a FinTech Academy that has for-credit curriculum, not for credit curriculum, professional ed, experiential learning, and project-based research, essentially. But you can see how this begins to connect an entire sector to an entire system rather than one-to-one-to-one, one company working with one department at one institution to generate 15 people. Now, instead, what we are seeing, and this is, I can update this number on the left that says we have served 4,300 students. It's now 5,700 students. In 3 years, 5,700 students have taken those 5 courses. 1,600 students have been placed in fintech jobs. This past year, 880 students were enrolled in those fintech courses, and we've added another 6 over at Kennesaw State University. So this isn't even reflecting those additional numbers. This is what we're able to do at a system level for an entire industry sector in a matter of a few years. So we went back and did it again. In digital payments, we took a deeper dive in fintech because we began to get feedback from the employers that people come to work in fintech and actually don't fully understand what a transaction is. And we began to call it the anatomy of a transaction, and built a curriculum specific to the digital economy, digital payments. The employment collaboration here has been incredible. We are building our first faculty industry fellowship, kind of like your management development program designs, where the faculty will rotate through several companies, have an experience, learn about fintech in depth, and then bring that experience back to their course. We discovered this when a couple of companies had hosted events, and we were allowed to sit in on them. There wasn't anything proprietary about the information, but it was development for employees at the company. And we all sat there and said, this would be amazing if we could get faculty in here. So we went back to those companies and said, hey, those experiences that you're already offering your employees, when appropriate, Could we have faculty come through there? And then we thought, well, that's kind of like a management development program. We'll rotate people through several companies, several of those experiences, and they'll come back and rebuild their courses.
Art, can I ask a question to sort of build on that? Do you plan to add co-op for students that would sort of mirror that or mimic that as you go forward?
Yes, that is dependent on the institution. So some institutions have a co-op model in place. I believe Georgia State is one of those institutions, Georgia Tech also, and ABAC. Other institutions have chosen internship and apprenticeship models, but the co-op is definitely a part of this. The last piece on digital payments that I'll mention for today is that we're also working with the American Transaction Processor Coalition on an endorsed credential. So folks will complete the courses, complete an exam, and you will have that there's a quality assurance of knowledge embedded in there. This gives a quick snapshot of the curriculum. Again, this was unknown. Most people going to work in digital payments were going through a finance program or a business degree with very general courses. We went and built out 6 courses. They're now at Kennesaw State University, also available to the entire system so that folks understand the depth of what is a transaction and how this is a critical part of the economy. The area that we're deep into right now, and I'm excited to share with you, is because of the importance of data science in fintech, we went and did the same depth of analysis that we did in fintech for data science. We met with 70 employers, interviewed, I don't know how many employees, it was probably 3 or 4x that by the time we got done, did a complete knowledge demand analysis, wrote a knowledge development framework. It's a huge grid of the domains, competencies, and capabilities that are valued within data science, had it validated by the employers that were involved, and then they priority selected those competencies for specific areas within data science, whether you were going to be a data scientist, a data engineer, or a data architect / data manager. So we had a clear delineation from the employers to say, this is what people should know and be able to do. These are the priorities. And now we're working with the faculty to rebuild entire data science programs. We had 21 of them in the state, and we're likely going to be rebuilding a lot of them because of how they were designed based on the information that was available before. But because employers gave us the time and gave us the opportunity to extract this knowledge from the employees in an appropriate way, we could then very clearly say, and it was like this specific, the employees who were working in data science, especially in the data architect, data manager area, were like, you don't use calculus. Calculus is not the priority in this space. Linear algebra and probabilities, that's what folks need to teach. I could go in and look at our program designs and see they were loaded with calculus, 3 or 4 levels. And what scares people away from data science quicker than calculus, right? So it turns out it's the wrong course. People don't like to take it. We could quickly redesign those programs and to be more effective for what the employer needs, but also likely more interesting to the students. Key takeaway here was that differentiation and that the employers wanted people who had experience with real data sets, solving real problems. So what's needed? Data science, 70,000 people in the state. I don't know what the whole country's demands are, but you can imagine it being 10x that, right? We need scalable and accessible knowledge development opportunities. 20 or 30 people in a course is not going to put a dent in 70,000. We need centralized assets. Our institutions don't have the data sets and the resources to access. We need a sandbox as one of those centralized assets where people can practice and play in a safe and secure environment with real data, real problems. And we need more collaborative research with the employers to know what problems that they're trying to solve. This is sort of how we see the design of the platform working out. We are into this right now. So what's next? We've completed the reconvening of the employers. We've mapped the competencies. We are now working with the employers and the entire university system to map best-in-class assets to the competencies and capabilities. So the employers have told us what's important people need to know and be able to do. And now we're looking at every asset we have at 26 universities and with the employers. Had a discussion with Google about this the other day. What assets and resources do you have available? AIQ in Atlanta, data science company, making data sets available for students to practice. So we can work, the next phase of this work, and I was on a call about it on the way up here today, is to map those best-in-class assets to those competencies and then identify where there are gaps, assets that need to be built, and redevelop these courses on a system level so that a massive number of people see this as an opportunity and then are able to take those courses.
Art, you mentioned earlier about how employers have raised questions about how you're graduating folks, but they may not have real world experience.
Mm-hmm.
Are there opportunities that you have today or would like to develop with respect to internships or work study opportunities that would give those students the opportunity to learn a little bit about the real world while they're still students?
It's as if you were reading my next slide. Yes, that's my ask for today. This is what we need so bad. We understand what it is the folks need to know and be able to do. The employers have told us. And now what we need are faculty and industry fellowships so that the faculty can come immerse themselves, not for a long period of time, just a short period of time in the sector and clearly see what's going on and do this continuously. Second thing that is badly needed are real, and I'll say real, in quotes, real synthetic data sets and real challenges. What the employers told us very clearly is they need folks who can come in and solve problems day one. We went and spoke to the faculty at the 21 institutions offering those data science programs. And what we heard was, well, we can only get certain cleansed data sets and we're using Excel. And so we went to a couple of companies right away, a few of them very large fintech companies, and said, isn't there some way that we could make, again, quote unquote, real or synthetic data sets available to folks with real problems in a sandbox? So we met with Oracle. They have a data science sandbox. We met with the Georgia Cyber Security Center in Augusta, where the NSA and U.S. Army Cyber Command train. They have a secure environment where we can spin up a sandbox. So we can provide a very secure, controlled environment in which we could put these data sets in these problems. Not that we want, personally identifiable information, none of that stuff, but to be able to just clean it up enough so that isn't a threat. And at the same time, a student could be dropped into an environment and work on a real problem, unstructured data, really messy, a real problem, and turn them loose on that and provide an opportunity for the employers to work alongside of these students so that you can see what they're capable of and frankly, pick them off, cherry pick them, select these folks, get them hired before they even graduate. Third would be assets and environments for teaching and learning, both in fintech, in data science, but there are environments, there are tools and things that the institutions just cannot get access to the extent you want folks coming out the door and ready to work in those environments. They don't necessarily have to be exactly the same, but they need to be in the same class that you want them to be able to think and solve problems. This would be a huge impact. Also, another great opportunity to collaborate with the students all along the way throughout their higher education preparation and help coach them, help develop them. And then, again, I hope to see you hire them before they graduate. And the last being internships, apprenticeships, co-ops, really the full continuum of experiential learning, because that's where the students really develop that knowledge in experience. And I will tell you, this combination of things, one thing we found in this work was that so many employers were looking for people with 3 to 5 years experience. These last 3 bullets especially get you a graduate who's closer. I can't promise you that they'll look like a 5-year employee, but we can get them a lot further down the road with this kind of collaboration, because they will have done the work and experienced the real problems with you.
Not to throw you off course, but I'm going to ask maybe a tricky question, and I'm not sure if you have an answer necessarily, but are there master's degrees or graduate programs or doctorates that are connected to this project?
Yes, several advanced degrees, some specific to fintech that are being launched, master's degrees. I don't know about a PhD in fintech yet. I do know about master's degrees, and certainly in data science, they already exist. PhDs and master's degrees in data science are out there throughout the system. And that's mainly what I had for you today. And any questions or things folks would like me to dig into?
Any questions from anyone listening? Art, I will tell you, this sounds fascinating, and if I had the opportunity to go to school again, and thank God I don't, but I I would consider coming to the University of Georgia system. In terms of, how far out are you tracking your graduates once they leave? I know you mentioned that over the last year, I think you've placed in 800 or so students. Are you tracking them throughout their careers, or do you even have that capability? Or do you have graduates who come back and say, thank you, this is a wonderful program? What else can we do to expand opportunities?
This has been a real challenge for us, is that tracking issue, because there's legal barriers to that, to tracking someone. Some of the tricks that folks have come up with is like, some institutions will require the student create a LinkedIn account, and then you can kind of get them to join a group, or, find them, but there's no clear legal way to say, I'm watching you go from graduation to this employer to the next employer. That's a challenge for us to do that right now. There are some tools out there that help us get it generally. I'm trying to think your other question. I'm sorry, I lost it.
No, it's fine. Look, I know it's tricky, and people move and get married, and their lives evolve. But at the same time, I think it would be interesting, right, to see if how far some of these students are able to go once they get their foot in the door. I mean, most people just need an opportunity, but it's hard to get people, once they've left the institution, to come back. My only recommendation, if they're in Georgia, is to have a big happy hour at some point, and that might be the way to track them down and ask them for money. But it's interesting, because I would love to see where some of these people end up, and if they're in leadership positions, or are they starting their own companies? Are they innovating in some way that would be interesting to you and your colleagues in the University of Georgia?
I would love to know that. We get a reasonable number that come back because it's such a tight-knit community within fintech, especially, that we can find out where folks are, or they reach back out to us and they become part of a seminar or help teach a class or something the next time around. So we do have some of that activity, but it's been really challenging to track it systematically.
Well, I do want to make sure that we stay in touch. I think this is a wonderful opportunity, not only for students, but for employers. Can you just talk a little bit about if there is an opportunity from one of the members in our membership who want to teach or mentor, or, is there a process to be an adjunct or something like that?
Absolutely. And in the fintech space, that's very easy to do through the Fintech Academy. We do that very often. We know where the courses are, when they're being delivered, who the faculty are very specifically. So that's a very easy connection to make. The experiential learning component is also a very easy connection to be made. We have mechanisms for the entire system to help with recruiting. The Fintech Academy specifically runs recruitment events, career fairs, webinars. So it's fintech specific. The Fintech Academy, fintechacademy.org, I think is the website, or email me, and I'm happy to connect anyone directly with folks there. That is very well streamlined, and really we'll take any support we can get in terms of teaching, guest speaker. In the data science area, also embedded within fintech, we're really prioritized on assets to help people learn, and those real or synthetic data sets and real problems to be solved. That's where we are with that project right now. And it would be a huge help. Again, that folks can reach out directly to me, and I can get them plugged in to that project that we're working on right now.
And my last question, and do you get information or contacted by, let's say, working professionals who want to kind of go back to school and learn? Or is there like a certificate program, or for those who have families and are working, but they want to stay kind of keyed into what's going on? Are those possibilities out there?
Yes, those can also be streamlined connections through if it's fintech specific, through the Fintech Academy. And so there are certificate options for credit, and the professional education, professional learning options that are not for credit, more like exec ed type things. Those are coming online this year.
This has been wonderful. I'll pause one more time to see if anyone has any outstanding questions before we let Art go. If we do, Art, receive questions, we'll be happy to forward them on to you. We will be following up with you to check on your progress and see what we can do to be helpful. But I very much appreciate what you shared with us today, and you being here. I think it's really important. I think there's a lot of good opportunities for a wide range of people.
Thank you. This is a great opportunity, and we really appreciate your support, Brian, and all the employers. None of this could have happened without you all. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Art. If we don't speak before, please have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we'll follow up with you soon.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.